Third grade, welcome back to math. Today we're going to start talking about quadrilaterals, which are, as we learned from our polygon lesson, quadrilaterals are four-sided shapes. So let me get our presentation up. All right, so here are some examples of some quadrilaterals that we will talk about today. And just like the past couple of days, I have a video that tells you a little bit about quadrilaterals. Now, let me tell you, it's a fun video, but the woman that is doing the video, she talks really, really fast. So don't worry if you don't understand something, because we will go over it after you watch it. So just listen. It is very catchy, so you can sing along once you get the words down.
Hey everybody, welcome to the McCarthy Math Academy Geometry Series. This is part 4 of 4 and welcome to Club Quad. All four-sided polygons today. Are you ready? Listen to this one over and over until you know it by heart. You know I love me some geometry. Watch me bust out that geometry vocabulary. You know I love me some geometry. Watch me bust out that geometry vocabulary. You made it to part 4, you're incredible. It's time to drop some knowledge on quadrilaterals. Surprise! We're about to analyze and justify all the many different types. Stand by as I supply a way to classify these quads. True. At the top we'll start out generally, you know the basics, and work our way down the quad plan and gradually get more specific. First up, Mr. Quad must be a four-sided polygon and get in his club. Moving down the plan and scan for parallel sides. Check out the bottom and top and then side to side. My eyes spy one pair of parallel sides. This pair could go on forever, but the other pair could cross right there. What do we call this quad? How is it classified? It's trapped to the side, it's a trapezoid. What about two pairs of parallel sides? It only makes sense to get a parallel prize with a name that's insanely obvious, a parallelogram. Now we gotta discuss. Some parallelograms have four right angles and a special name. You remember this quad member, the rectangle, from back in first grade. All p-grams have opposite sides the same length. But what if all sides are the same? Clever question coming from your brain. A p-gram with four sides the same is called a rhombus. A rhomb what? It kinda looks like a square that's been pushed over. Hold up, do you feel that in the air? Ah, geez Louise, it's Sassy Square, always holding up a mirror to see her own reflection. Pass me the mic and admire my perfection. Who does she think she is? I know, right? She just walks up in here thinking that she has everything. Well, she kinda does. Mr. Quad, I'm a four-sided polygon too. Two pairs of parallel sides, so I'm a p-gram boom. Check me out, rectangle, rockin' for right angles. Rhombus, I wear these equal sides better than you. I think it's plain to see that I'm the greatest thing that ever entered Club Quad. Oh, I'm dazzling. Y'all are okay in your own sort of way. Here's the truth, these attributes are better on me. Oh no, she didn't. Yes, she did. Like I said, go on and admire my perfection. You know I love me some geometry. Watch me bust out that geometry vocabulary. You know I love me some geometry. Watch me bust out that geometry vocabulary.
I don't know about you, but when she was singing that song, I was dancing in my seat. I hope you were too. All right, so let's talk about the quadrilaterals that the teacher in that video was talking about. And again, as a review, a quadrilateral is a shape that has four sides and four angles. And remember that prefix quad means four, so that can help you remember. Like you can think of like a quad that you might ride on, like a four-wheeler. Again, it has four wheels, so quad. All right, so this is that family tree that the teacher in the video had. Remember, there's all different types of quadrilaterals. So we're going to take that family tree and we're going to break down the different types of quadrilaterals. All right. So remember, as the video said, one of the characteristics of quadrilaterals is that they have parallel sides. And remember, parallel means that it could go on either the left or right, or the top and bottom lines could go on and on forever and never meet. A way that you can remember parallel is those two L's in parallel. Those are parallel lines because those are two straight lines and they will never ever meet or get further apart. Okay, so in quadrilaterals, some quadrilaterals are called parallelograms. And a parallelogram is a quadrilateral that has four sides and each pair of opposite sides. So that means the top and the bottom, or the left and right sides, are parallel, and they're also the same length. So again, here are some examples of parallelograms. So let's use this big rectangle as an example. The top and bottom are the same length, and they're also parallel. That means they won't ever get closer together or further apart. They will always stay the same distance apart. So that's one set of parallel lines. But then also the side to side, the left and right, are also parallel. They are also the same length or size, and they are also parallel. They won't get closer together or further apart if you were to extend the lines. But there's one type of quadrilateral that does not have two sets of parallel lines, and that's called a trapezoid. The top and bottom are parallel, but the sides are not parallel. They will get closer together and further apart. In this example, if I were to extend this line up and this line, they'll get closer together. And if I were to extend this down and that down, they would get further apart. So in our quadrilateral tree here, we have, again, quadrilaterals at the top, parallelograms. Remember, parallelograms have two sets of parallel lines, and those two sets, the top and bottom and left to right, are the same length. And the trapezoid, they only had one set of parallel lines, so they're still a quadrilateral, but they're not a parallelogram. All right, so underneath our parallelogram, we have a couple of different types of quadrilaterals. The first one is a rectangle. In a rectangle, the top and bottom lines are parallel, and they're also the same length. And the sides, the left and right side, are also parallel, and they are the same length. Now, one more characteristic of a rectangle compared to a parallelogram is the type of angle that they have. So if you remember, on Tuesday last week, we talked about the different types of angles. We talked about acute angles and right angles and obtuse angles. So in a rectangle, all four of the angles in a rectangle are right angles. And those little squares in the corners is how you would identify right angles. Let's talk about a rhombus. Rhombus is kind of like a square or a rectangle, but it is kind of slanted a little bit. So the left and right side, those sides are parallel, and the top and bottom sides are also parallel. Now, all four sides in a rhombus are the same length. So why is a rhombus, if all four sides the same length, why do you think a rhombus is not called a square? Think about that for a minute. The reason a rhombus is not called a square is because of the angles. In a square, and we'll talk about this in a couple minutes, all four angles, just like the rectangle, are right angles. Okay. All right, so that is the next level of our family tree. Again, we have quadrilaterals, shapes that have four sides and four angles. Then we have parallelograms, where we have two sets of parallel lines, and remember the opposite sides. So left and right, or top and bottom sides, are the same length. And we also have trapezoids. Trapezoids only have one set of parallel lines, and one's the set that's not parallel, those sides are the same length, but they are not parallel. And then we have the rectangle and rhombus. Remember, rectangle has two sets of parallel lines, and each set, so either the top or bottom or left to right, are different lengths. And then the rhombus has two sets of parallel lines, and all four sides are the same length. Let's talk about this last, you can't see it, I don't think. Let's talk about this last box on our family tree, and that is the square. Again, square has four sides and four angles, where all four sides are the same length. Now, just like we talked about a rectangle and how all four angles in a rectangle were right angles, that's the same as a square. All four angles in a square are right angles. All right, so here is our completed family tree. Again, all of these shapes that we talked about are quadrilaterals, but there's different types of quadrilaterals. They could be parallelograms, they could be trapezoids, rectangles, rhombus, or square. Now this sheet, I know that was a lot of information, and sometimes it's a little tricky to understand. So I have this helpful hints sheet that you can look back at as you're doing your work to remind yourself of the different types of quadrilaterals that we talked about. And underneath, we have the name of the quadrilateral. So the square, the rectangle, the trapezoid, the parallelogram, or the rhombus. And we also have the characteristics, the equal sides, what sides are parallel, the angles. Now, I see that this in the square, in the rectangle, and the rhombus, it says something about 90-degree angles. That's a fancy word to say right angles. So hopefully this sheet will help you as you do your work. I'm going to show you what your assignment is, because it is a little different than you have in the past. Okay, so it is going to be a Google form. So I just took a picture of the first question just so we could kind of talk through it. So what you're going to do is you're going to be given a shape right here. And we see that these two lines mean that they're parallel. This box here means it's a right angle or 90 degrees. And then we have all of the different types of quadrilaterals that we talked about. So what you're just going to have to do, now I can't do this because it's a picture, but you're just going to click on the box that describes the name of that shape. And then don't forget to hit submit at the end after you answered all of the questions. If you do have a question, you can ask an adult or an older sibling in your house, or you can email your teacher and they will be happy to help. All right, hope you enjoy it. Have a great day.